All right, let's continue here now. Angry residents at Kwa-Thema have torched municipal vehicles and vandalized the customer care center over prolonged period without electricity. The municipality has missed yet another deadline to fully restore power to the township after a substation was gutted. Residents have been waiting for 19 days for power to return. While power has been restored in most areas, extension 2, 3, Barcelona and parts of Masimini remain in the dark. I'm joined now in a studio by Mbalenhle Mthethwa. Thank you so much for your time. So talk to us about what is happening now. What's triggering these latest protests from the community members?
Well, what you see happening right now are residents really wanting to get answers from officials over there. It seems as though people decided to take their protest instead of protesting in the streets or just anyway. They went directly to the Mbalenhle Customer Care Center, which is right in the center of the township, really. And that is where we hear, and we have confirmed from EMPD's spokesperson that there were two vehicles that were also burned down and that were torched, really. And we also hear that the entrance to the CCC there, the customer care center, has also been vandalized. The glass doors there have been vandalized, and we understand that not far from there is a fire station, and we hear that there might have been attempts to also vandalize that area. And this is just frustrations mounting following 19 days of waiting for the power to be restored. We understand that the municipality has missed yet another deadline, which was yesterday, really, 18 days. The power was meant to be restored on the 29th of this month, but it seems as though some areas remain without electricity. Initially, the deadlines kept moving from 7 days and another 7 days being added, and finally the promise was such that residents would have power by the 29th, and we saw over the weekend more sections coming back onto the grid and getting electricity. But it seems as though the problem now remains with a really huge section, really, which is extension 3, extension 2, as well as Barcelona, as well as Masimini as well. So it seems as though while some areas are, have power restored, but it's not the entire section of an area.
And I mean, we've heard this time and time again, this of course being the longest. 19 days is an extremely long time for people to wait for power, but we know that in the area there's other issues as well, waste management issues, water related issues. What are authorities saying?
Well, we haven't heard much so far. The most we've seen are statements that are really issued through their social media platform, where they do update residents about what's happening in the areas that have had power restored to them. We do understand that just this weekend that we're coming from, residents spent most of the weekend with no water and no electricity. And this is obviously a problem. And when we talk about the issue of crime and the issue of safety, when it's always dark, and you can go to any community in Gauteng or anywhere in South Africa, really, when it's dark, it's always an opportunity for criminals to then go ahead and do what they do best, for lack of a better word, really. This then puts residents in a vulnerable position. But what we also need to also bear in mind is that when there's no electricity, there's no network. It means that should there be an emergency, and should you need to call emergency services, say the police and ambulance or anyone like that or anything like that, you are not going to be able to reach those people given the fact that there's no electricity and no network for residents to be able to access those services.
Do we actually know the extent of the damage, particularly at the service customer care center? Because as we know, outside of these power cuts, these unforeseen power cuts, as the authorities are saying, there's also load shedding. We currently fluctuating between stage 5 and 6, 4 to 6 load shedding. What are the people on the ground saying about just how they are surviving?
You know, we did speak to, I mean, this is the third protest that we're seeing since the first time we heard that the power had been, I mean, the substation rather, had been gutted and completely burned down after load shedding. The power was meant to be restored at 4 a.m. on a Thursday morning, and the power never came back because of that particular fire. And we've heard residents going about asking for answers and saying that, you know, their children are struggling to do their homeworks. You know, I spoke to an elderly gentleman who said that, you know, it's very cold, and because we're old, it's so easy to get sick. So, you know, we need to be able to get a speedy resolution to this situation. We also heard residents going and calling for answers and trying to get answers. And this, at the time, we understand that the municipality had elected to dig up trenches in order to connect the community to what seems to be what was an idle substation in Volcania, and then bring the cables all the way to the main substation in order to power up the community. And we saw that taking very long, and this is why you've seen 3 protest actions happening, and the deadlines that the municipality keeps missing, really adding to the frustrations on the ground and forcing people into the streets. The last time there was a protest, we saw residents going to blockade the N17, but we saw the police coming along and dispersing that particular crowd, and we saw them yet again going to where the incident actually started. There are some cell phone footage that we have gotten, and we do understand that these are pictures and visuals of what has actually happened there and what's transpired there, and people are still gathered there trying to find answers and to find out why it is that it's taken so long for this community to have power restored to them. And at the time, we also spoke to some residents who said this thing is being treated like a project. It's not being treated as a contingency measure. There are no contingency measures, and that it's not being treated as the emergency that it is when a whole township is plunged into darkness and people are then expected to wait while there is digging happening. And at some point we're hearing that allegations that there were some stoppages to the work because the workers claimed that they had not been paid along the sites. But the municipality will have to come in and just explain to the residents as to why it is that it has taken this long for the whole community to be restored, for power to be restored in the entire community, and the frustrations obviously are mounting at this point.
Mbalenhle, thank you so much for that comprehensive report. Thank you so much for your time. Mbalenhle Mthethwa there, just giving us the very latest in terms of the protests that we've been seeing at Kwa-Thema.